Welcome back, one and all, to the CHGO Sky Podcast with the ALLCITY Sports Network. Glad you're with us today because we got a fantastic episode for you. I'm Chris Pennant at Quandary Kitten on Twitter. Follow the show as always at CHGO_Sky on Twitter, and follow the CHGO Sports Network at CHGO_Sports. I'm here as always with the best point guard to ever come out of Willowbrook High School, Stephen Garner. How you doing, Stephen?
What's going on, fellas? How y'all doing? I'm well.
Man.
Doing great. We got our producer Joey with us today, and a special guest on the show, extra special guest, the brand new general manager of the CHGO Sky, the pride of Long Grove, Illinois, Stevenson High School graduate class of '96, and the CEO of Evolution Athletics Incorporated. Very glad to have on the show with us today, Jeff Pagliocca. How are you, Jeff?
Good to see everybody. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for coming on the show with us. Jeff, I got to ask, a friend of mine from college was from up north as well, Spring Grove, a little bit further north towards the border.
Yep.
And she's a winter sports person. So I got to ask, is this your kind of weather, or are you a WNBA season type of weather person?
Yeah, we were talking about this before you hopped on. It's cold, even for me that's been here, and I'm sure anybody else that's a native of the Midwest. This is up there, as far as not interested, So we'll take the WNBA seasonal weather from the Pagliocca end.
I wholeheartedly agree with you. I was wondering because you're at least used to it. That's what everybody says. Everybody's like, "Oh, you like this weather?" It's like, no, we're used to it.
Right.
We don't like it.
Yeah, even being used to it is a little much. You got to make sure the car starts, you can drive.
Oh, man.
What's going on, and there's never enough bundles, so.
Yeah, so many more precautions taken when the weather gets like this. I think you said it perfectly, Chris. We're just used to it. I mean, we like it.
Right. Right.
Well, definitely appreciate having you on the show, taking time out of your schedule. I know it's the other side of January 1st, so you are pretty much in the thick of things as far as getting prepared for the season starts. But I know we have a lot to talk about and a good amount of time to do it. But I wanted to start first. I read an article that you had with an interview you had with the Daily Herald right after you got the GM position, and I was surprised to see that you didn't play varsity ball in high school, and you were at Purdue. It's kind of around the program, interested in it. What attracted you to basketball besides getting the chance to see Tamika Catchings in high school?
Yeah, look, get back to that real quick. There was 3 McDonald's All-Americans on that team when I was there. I think we were number 1 USA Today for 2 years. There was Tamika, there was her sister Taja, and then there was Katie Coleman, went to Illinois too. So we were handing it to people, every night. They were very tough. But yeah, I didn't play much basketball. I played more soccer than anything else. And after I got out of college, I was looking for work, knew I wanted to spend time with kids and love basketball at that point. I was teaching at a school real close to Stevenson up north out here, and they needed a basketball coach. And truly, the rest is history. Just started building the business from there. Hopped on at Stevenson for a season with Pat Ambrose, and just wanted to target the skills route instead of the coaching side of it. So at the time, it wasn't much of a field. It was just me and my thoughts, trying to start from scratch without a blueprint. And unfortunately, without too much help, because it was a job in its infancy, So, that skill work side of things was just starting out. So that's kind of, that's where I got my start.
Completely understand. I know it's difficult to build a business. I think, like you said, the skills trainer field was in its infancy then. Want to shout out your coach at Stevenson, Pat Ambrose, just retired this year, 505 wins, best coach in school history that you got to learn from. What'd you learn while you were on his staff?
Well, he was really sharp, and it was right when he got there, and I was super young, and he was young too. This is 20 years ago, and just the accountability he forced players to play with, to me, has stuck with me the whole time. So when I started my business, those are things I took with me. I mean, he was really, really into making sure that people were dialed in, disciplined, the details mattered, and to me, that's how I built my whole business. So I'm thankful, appreciative for him for sure.
Agreed on that. It's good to have a mentor like that. Just going with that training route. Steven, go ahead, man. I know that you got a lot to ask on that.
Yeah, for sure. I think the first thing that comes to mind is because the skill development sector of anything included with basketball is still relatively new and rapidly evolving with the game as well. Sure. I was curious, what about that side just made, like, what about that side just stuck with you and made you want to tap in with that side versus coaching or any other sector?
Yeah, it's easy. I would see like footwork, either correct or incorrect, and it came easy to me, so I was lucky and fortunate that there was aspects of the game, without playing much of it, that came easy. And it was mechanical stuff that I could see. Maybe a guy was missing a shot because he was turning or twisting, or the elbow was out, or the head was coming back, or it was drifting a little bit. That stuff, I was able to spot it kind of quickly, solve the problem, move on to the next one. Even young, I didn't really know exactly how to communicate it, but I knew it was there. So that side, it was easy for me to gravitate right to it, because that felt the most comfortable in this new job, that, in this new sport even. So.
Okay. And so when you got the opportunity at Stevenson, is that what you really started to kind of just gravitate towards in terms of what you were bringing to the pot for the coaching staff and things of that nature?
Yeah, definitely. I was walking on eggshells around that guy. If you know him, he was tough from day one. We played a lot of one-on-one every day, but outside of that, on the court, it was his world. So I was always paying attention, to the little stuff. And as I got more comfortable and the year progressed, I was able to, voice those things a lot easier, so, but that stuff, it came easy to me. And at the time, that was a spot on the staff that was helpful too, to attack that mechanical side.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Was there anything about your soccer background that translated to basketball when you're talking about footwork, when you're talking about mechanics? I know that there's some that, might seem intuitive to just the average watcher, listener, and there's some things that might need a little bit of more technical savvy. But what from your background there helped you in your career?
I think people make the comparisons a lot between the two sports, due to the spacing, the mechanical stuff, the playing off each other, making quick reads, using instincts. I think a lot of time, even when certain colleges, lose practice players, sometimes they go to the soccer team to try to find bodies, because those sports can make the most sense as far as spacing and stuff of that nature. So a lot of similarities, believe it or not, just playing with other people and a ball that's got to move, and not being in a rush, playing with pace, a lot of similarities.
Kind of to that point, a conversation I have with a lot of my cousins and family members and even friends. I don't personally have kids, but when the topic of sports comes up, I always tend to tell people to just don't put their children in a box because of the transferable skills that come from sports. And with you being a professional in that space, I was curious about your perspective on that and how you feel skills from specific sports kind of translate and mesh with one another over the course of an athlete's career.
Well, I can talk to you as a trainer and I can talk to you as a father. Maybe the father stuff won't make too much sense, because that kid, my older one.
We're all about personal development on this show.
Yeah, right. I could use some growth in that department early on, but he's still playing. Thank goodness he turned out okay. But yeah, I mean, look, my older one, we had him going immediately, 2-3 years old, off the reservation almost at times. We were working out so much and so hard, but he loved it, so it was easy, but we still tried to get him in other sports. So to use a personal example, having him in soccer or t-ball, I mean, you just don't know. Your body is complicated and you don't want to, pigeonhole it too much physically. that's when injuries can occur and things like that. So, getting young kids, especially in different sports, and you never know what they're going to fall in love with, so taking those options away, I think is never ideal, especially at a young age. But, life goes by fast, school goes by fast. You want people to do what they want to do, and at some point you got to hone in, and lock in on a certain sport. Especially some high schools out here are huge, right? So you're competing with a lot of kids, a lot of good players, a lot of size. We got schools out here, a handful of them, 4,000 or 5,000 kids. So at some point you do have to lock in on one. But I think when you're young, the more sports you can play, the better for so many reasons. The social reasons, the body, the physical reasons, and anything in life can lend to itself. I know that I lean into people in other walks of life, business-wise, sport-wise, to help give me a hand, when I'm weighing, certain decisions. So I think it's no different when you look at sports.
Could you go more towards that? Like, you want to pull from everything, right?
Absolutely.
In whatever decisions you're making. But what are the things that you lean on, that you look to when you're making those decisions?
I definitely lean on a handful of people in my life at this point that aren't always necessarily basketball people. I mean, I've got a lot of friends that own businesses or CEOs of companies, and I like hearing their perspective, because getting things from a different direction, at least for me, and in general, the way I built my business without really any blueprint or experience, I was able to kind of attack it my way. And, the more I was able to build, the more I realized that having help is a good thing. So to me, that was always something I was searching for, and always encouraged myself to pay attention to successful people.
Got you. I guess kind of for me, the next thing I kind of wanted to speak to in a more current state is looking at your relationship with franchise player Paglia Copper. I think it's very public how much influence and impact you've had on her in terms of her skill development. And she's developed quite a lot since she's been with the Sky. Really turned into one of the better players in the W. I guess the first question I would ask is, in terms of Kai, what specific things, whether it's like her movement patterns, just her general competitive fire, that makes her unique from maybe any other athlete that you've trained with?
Yeah, that's a great one. I'd like to think that it's her competitive edge. That fire is second to none. There's a lot of super competitive players in the league and definitely on our team. But she there's no quitting that girl, and I gravitate to players like that. I always have on the NBA side when I was traveling with those guys and spending more time, and previously, what I was doing. And she fit right in, as far as that mindset and that mentality. I mean, that girl's in kill mode all the time.
We saw some of that with the hometown documentary when she was talking about playing on that on the court on Berks. I could get that sense, and I don't know if you guys grew up around the same, but I saw a lot of those milk crate alleyway courts in my time growing up. So I know what it was like. Those were fierce games. The same thing, I think Steven alluded to it last year. His term for the team was that they were dogs. They were a group of dogs with the DAWG, and it's, I think, a good way to put it with Paglia Copper, but also with new coach Teresa Witherspoon. How often have you two been able to get together to link up, and what have you seen that, like, how is she going to put her mark on the team?
Yeah, we talk multiple times a day for months now. The synergy's amazing. She's amazing. We've been meeting in person regularly as well. She's been spending some long trips in Chicago. Obviously we've got a lot to work on and catch up on, but she's 101 for sure. I mean, obviously all the accolades of her as a player are incredible, but just to be around her, to see her command of the room, how detail oriented she is, how competitive she is. I mean, there is real fire, genuine, authentic fire there. And I'm the same way. If you had the Patrick Beverleys in the room, the guys I spent a majority of my career with, they'll tell you how much that means to me to be that type of person as a leader. So I fit right in with Coach Witherspoon. We are fully aligned, and like I said, these are multiple conversations a day. So I'm thankful and grateful for her and the people that put me in place. So.
And kind of in alignment with that, and speaking to your relationship with Coach Weatherspoon, I'm curious how in your role now, as well as her with her background and her background specifically with skill development, will play into the development of players already on the roster and players that you might potentially draft in upcoming drafts and things of that nature. Will you both still be hands-on, even given a different role title, or will you still be kind of a little bit more laid back and letting the other entities of your coaching staff work to that?
Yeah, that's a good one. It's stuff we talk about every day between the two of us. Obviously, Coach Witherspoon was doing player development at the Pelicans, and I've spent 20 years in the field. And obviously, that's how I got this job, was being with the team for those 3 years in that role. I think it's going to be hard for me to step away a little bit, but we're going to put people in place that we want to grow. And the good news is we're going to be able to frame it and weigh in on a lot of these things. And I'm always going to be around. We worked out Ka a couple days ago in Chicago. It was good to be back out on the court. I'm fearful we're running out of time. The learning curve is steep, and I got a lot to do. But I'm looking forward to this new chapter, and I know that I'll be close, and available. So
that I like the way that we're going, because I think we're flowing right into questions. I was going to ask, what's been the most challenging part of the tenure so far? I know there's not anything that you've given up about specifics in free agency, but just moving from your role with the staff, the coaching staff, to this new role, what's been the most challenging aspect that you've had to take on?
I think that I really didn't know what to expect, to be honest with you. I've done something my whole life, and when I got hired, I was really excited, and I knew there was going to be a lot to learn. In this league, you got to wear a lot of hats in every position, and that's just how it goes. So, whatever it is we're working on that week, I got to have my hands in it. So, maybe it's targeting free agents, maybe it's working on budget stuff. Maybe it's doing the working on the hiring, getting contracts out. There's a lot to do. And obviously the learning curve, like I said, is pretty steep since it's fully a brand new role for me. And, I have experience in a lot of things that are important, in this role, but there's also a lot that's new, and those challenges are there every day, but as far as evaluating players, getting a look at, how they could help, a team like ours, and, building our identity, those things always came easy to me. And I think that's why it was easy for me to flow into a role like this, and at this point in my career, it's really where I wanted to be was in a front office position. So the challenges are daily, but I speak with a lot of smart people. I'm in touch with the league. We, speak together, with our front office and Coach Witherspoon on a daily basis. So, we keep our heads together, and everything's getting, easier by the day. But there's a lot of complicated stuff too. But to me, that's what I was looking for. A new challenge surrounded by great people.
Our man, the Sky Show Shy, on the comments said, "Don't tell any free agents about the Chicago winter weather." Brian, man, it's everywhere. It's not just here. It's everywhere. Dallas is cold right now, so it's not like I don't know how many teams were fighting for good weather.
Right,
It's true.
Sherrod Shabazz, longtime follower of the team. Shout out Sharon for tuning in with us. Said, ask Jeff if you're monitoring Lee's production in Turkey. And again, know the specifics. We can't really get into that. But how has it been just keeping track and even keeping in touch with some of the players that you can while they are working overseas?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we do a great job from our end, staying in touch with everybody, and checking in. I'm watching the film all the time on all the players, because that's what I was doing anyway. That's fun for me, as a fan. Obviously we're trying to keep an eye on their games for a handful of different reasons at this point. But, we have plans in place with the players. We have things that I wanted them working on. And so we're paying attention to those things to make sure, we're getting players back that are improved, but to me, that's part of the fun part about the job, getting them out of Sky jerseys for a little bit and watching what they like to do out there. And, your roles a lot of time can be bigger, and different. Sometimes there's more freedom. These players in this league are great, and there's a lot of teams overseas that they can get to. So sometimes you get to go to work a little bit more out there, and that's fun for me to watch too.
I think that was a perfect in alignment with what Chris said a few minutes ago, perfect segue into a question that I had as well. You mentioned Patrick Beverly a little bit earlier, and I actually listened to.
I saw that video. Yeah.
Yeah, I listened to a podcast that you did with a Minnesota media outlet a few years ago when he spent time up there getting them to the play-in tournament and everything. I'm curious about Dana Evans. Now, there's a lot of similarities between those two players in terms of stature, how they go about playing in a competitive fire. Looking at her skill development last season, I spent a lot of time talking about how she got to the point where with her drive, she wasn't just trying to blow past people, but even initiating contact and dictating through that and either playmaking for herself or others from it. What have you seen from her skill development wise that's really helped her turn a corner in her career?
Yeah, look, she's gotten better each year for us. You know, the role has evolved more. I mean, I think she went from a point to maybe 4 to 9 last season. Yeah, she's a dog. I mean, she's a legitimate difference maker on both sides of the floor. She's been great overseas, but just another player with no quit that can change a game immediately when she's in. She pressures the ball. I don't know if there's anybody in the league that does what she can do. So she's a two-way player. She shoots the ball well. And to your point, pace is absolutely improved. You know, her being able to see the game from a playmaking perspective is going to keep helping her evolve. But she threw some passes last year, if we go back, that I don't know if we had anybody throwing when she'd find a corner, you know, from the opposite wing. Those are hard to do if you're not used to doing them or if you haven't done it as a pro or in college. So you can see her evolve. I mean, she cares a lot. And when you love it, you can be great. You know, you don't guard like her if you're not dying to lock somebody up, you know. So to the Pat discussion, yeah, I mean, some people are just kind of crazy wired like that. You know, she's one of them.
For sure.
I was going to say, our listeners will love to hear that. We joke that this is the Dana Evans show sometimes because
Right.
we get a lot of Dana traffic on the questions.
Yeah, look, I mean, you know how Spoon and I are, you know, with what we're looking for. I mean, we want players like her. We want people fully committed to that buy-in, kill mode all the time.
And we were kind of talking about how different the international game is, and you spoke to the opportunity that it allows you to see the players on the contract with different teams and in different systems and different levels of play and things of that nature. Just kind of looking at Dana specifically, what have you kind of seen from her in terms of the volume of pick and roll opportunities she's had, as well as the different types of defenses, whether that be help or schematically, just the different types, whether it's drop at the level, and how she's kind of processing that portion of everything she's doing as a point guard?
Yeah, you know, we just talked a couple days ago about, you know, I asked her what are some things that you felt you've been growing with over the last couple of weeks, and what are, you know, the things that we have to make sure we're staying on. And the first thing she said was just, you know, her playmaking. And when the game continues to slow down for her, you know, she's a go, go, go. You know, the older you get, the more experience you have. You can look at any league and then look at a player 5 years later. You know, you'll see growth if they love it and if they pay attention, if they study the game. And that's what I'm seeing with her a lot of the time. She can make these reads for sure. So a player like that, and a lot of, you know, those systems overseas, especially in Europe, you know, the ball moves a lot more. You know, the coaches force you to keep that thing moving, you know, and then they'll get you in a ball screen a majority of the time, you know, before the end of that shot clock. So she can do it all, you know, and she's still plenty young enough that she's not close to her ceiling. So, you know, she's a dog.
This is the CHGO Sky Show again, the CHGO Sports, part of the All-City Sports Network. Thank you for tuning in with us. We are here, Stephen and I, with Sky GM Jeff Pagliocca. Jeff, that Patrick Beverly talk you had, I saw the one that was with Old Spice for Father's Day, and that was really cool in itself, because I think even with the breadth of podcasts that are on the air, even with the breadth of media coverage, I don't know if I've seen Patrick Beverly open up in a personal manner the way that I've seen in that one, specifically to just him talking about his relationship with you and that workout where you went to UIC, you got there at 6, he got there at 8 with another trainer. And I mean, it makes sense. As I say, Westside Pat it's going to take him some time to let somebody in, but the way that he talked about you and his relationship, there's a lot of trust there. And you've worked with players from going way back that I think are in the same vein where they are, if not introverted, they're not going to easily let people into their circle. Talking about Courtney Vandersloot, talking about Ka, Pat Bev, Frank Kaminsky, Brandon Paul, these guys. What is it about your style, your manner, your background, your philosophy that has engendered that trust? And how do you work to build those relationships, as I think you put it in the Daily Herald article, with players, with the personnel that you've worked with?
Yeah, first of all, it's really humbling to hear things like that. I mean, I took my job so seriously, and I knew that the more success I had, the more I had to make sure that trust was staying in the forefront, relationship building was staying in the forefront. And so when you get personalities like all those, even dating back to John Shire when he had just started at Duke, another really, really committed, disciplined, no nonsense guy. But those types of players, for whatever reason, gravitated to me as well. And just really building the relationship and showing them that I'm there for them, not me. I was able to earn their trust and respect. And you got to come prepared with players like that. You don't just get in a gym and, get some layups, get some jumpers, shoot some threes, and shut it down and take off. You have to show up prepared with the film, with a plan. You have to talk to players like that with a lot of confidence. And, these are the best in the world at what they do. And there's a million of me floating around and one of them, and I always had that, in the back of my mind, front of my mind, it's like we got to be ready to build a relationship, because once you build it, then you can get things accomplished. Then the communication can translate, from the court to the game, from the practice court to the game. And those types of personalities, Vanderfloot and Beverly's, not much different. Pagliocca, I mean, these are tough players with balls up, So to me, it was never a challenge, to win over those types of players. That's what I was wanting to do. That's where I was at my best. All those West Side guys, Kiefer Sykes, Al McKinney, Will Bynum, those are my guys. I came up with those guys in my gym, and I realized, I was able to earn their respect and their trust, and then kind of word travels, but when I got to the WNBA around the Sky, it was starting right back over. These people didn't know too much about me, and I had to say, okay, cool. Let's get it right with these guys again, so being able to spend time with the players I did, start with Diamond Shields, and then moving, to Vandersloot and Emma Meesman, and then to Pagliocca. I mean, these are some of the best players to ever touch a basketball. Some of the most brilliant, cerebral, incredible athletes, and they take their job very seriously. So to me, it was a no-brainer to make sure, I was coming the same way.
Yeah, for me, I think what really stands out in terms of everything that you just mentioned, in terms of the players that you've had a working relationship with for extended periods of time over your career, I think it's the point guard position that really jumps off the page to me. In terms of looking at the W game specifically, and we talked about the evolution of the game before we hopped on, specifically with that position, how have you seen the responsibilities evolve? And you could use like a player, for example, looking at Courtney Vandersloot or even looking at Dana. Skill set wise, how have you felt things have evolved in terms of how point guards, like the priority skill wise, to be effective or elite in leading the team in this rendition of the league?
Yeah, the league is getting so exciting, and every position is improving. I mean, to me, I'm always so thankful, and I never, miss an opportunity to tell people how thankful I am to be in the league at this time, to have a job like this right now. And, back to the point guard question, they're awesome, I mean, and you have to have them. You have to have these guards that are capable of keeping everybody involved, being that communicator, and still being able to make a play and hit an open shot. We're not just getting the ball over half court anymore, and just getting the offense initiated, and screening away and waiting in a corner. I mean, a lot of these guards on these teams can go. So you take a player like Dana, we just don't want her getting it over, moving it and hanging around, if she might see that thing back in 15 seconds, then ball screen's coming to get her so we can make a play 8 seconds on the clock, so you have to be able to make plays for other people and still keep enough pressure on the defense. You're making plays for yourself.
For sure. And kind of just looking at it from that same train of sight, assessing defenses as a point guard is it's something that if you look at any point guard being interviewed, I was looking at James Harden speaking to how he drills it on the daily and shoot around, post game, post practice, and just looking at how defenses are evolving to catch up with offenses in this evolution of basketball. How have you seen the reads for point guards specifically coming into pick and roll, just kind of evolving with that as well?
Basically, it comes down to how good you are at that spot, because if you're super dangerous, they're going to do things to get that thing out of your hand. They're going to ice all the side ball screens and take the middle away. They're going to blitz stuff super hard to make sure you just get off the ball. You remember when the Warriors were playing and winning, they double Steph, he'd pitch that thing to Draymond, he'd throw one more to Clay, so you got to be ready to handle offensively things differently, because the coverages will change. And the more, these other teams study the film, or you see a team 2-3 times, if you've done damage, they're not just going to let you jog it up and make plays for other people, and for the best guards in the league. And we've had a lot of good ones here, obviously, and we had one for a long term. The most dangerous guards, you got to have a plan. You can't. I mean, how it is with Harden, perfect example. You got to get that thing out of his hands and get him on a wing and make sure the middle is not wide open. Because once, the Danas, the Vandersloots, whoever these people get into the middle of the paint, it's over, because they can spread you out, and they got floaters, they got decent finishing packages, so it's really hard to bust that stuff up, but that comes with experience. Okay, I'm about to get blitzed tonight. I got to see the trap coming fast. Let me back up real quick, find somebody, or get ready to split this stuff. So cool. My workouts during the week, I got to make sure I'm working on splitting ball screens and with these three different options, or hey, you got to be ready, because I'm about to pitch that thing right away as soon as the double comes, and that's just another point guard job of communicating.
Definitely. I hope everybody is listening, because I can tell just your excitement in terms of breaking things down. And I know that translates to Steven. It translates to me. It translates to a lot of the people we have watching. Sharon Shabazz in the chat asking, how much time have you spent studying the salary cap? I talked about preparation when you were working as a trainer, and that's part of the preparation too. You said it's been kind of a going through everything day to day, budgeting, and as well as contracts for hiring for the organization and for the staff. So how much time have you had to put into just like looking at the intricacies of the salary cap?
That is a daily chore / task. Yeah. So every day, brother, every day. Started months ago. It's real critical, because every dollar counts, when you're making decisions. So it's a daily thing.
I think that goes into looking at the future, future outlook of the league in itself, because the salary cap and the CBA has those increases every year, but they're not uniform. And from players in the past few years, especially after 2020 with COVID and having to play down in Florida, I think there were a lot of players who were talking about revisiting the CBA at that time. I know that's not part of your daily grind, but how much of that is on your mind in terms of looking at both your job and just your appreciation or your outlook on the league as a person who loves basketball?
I mean, that stuff is on my mind, and there'll be a new CBA negotiated in a couple years, so that'll have bearing on decisions we'll make now as far as terms for contracts. So these things are always have a hard look taken at them, every few years, to make sure that the players are happy, and the league is as well. But I mean, that just goes to show that the growth of the league matters. So
I think the one thing I was wondering about is you're in the scope of things as you started your business. Working up in Deerfield, you kind of had you were in a good spot, even though you were working out of a building that one building closed, then you went over to North Shore, that was previously the Berto Center. But if you can think back and think of anything that might translate to kind of the hectic pace of this, what was that like, opening up that business, kind of going through a time where the internet was still catching up to where it is now? I had 56K until 2006,
right.
if that's a reminder.
Right.
What do you take from those days where you were really trying to get everything up and running, keep the lights on for yourself, so to speak, that really translates into your experience now?
Yeah, that's a good one. I always think back to when I was having my start. I always remind myself how far I've come and how hungry I still am. And to me, I'm as motivated now as I was when I was trying to get the company off the ground, to keep the lights on, and just love the game. I love connecting with players and trying to get the most out of them. And to me, this is the best role for me to continue, to keep that passion, fired up is trying to construct a roster and be there in a similar and different capacity at the same time for players and personnel around me. So I guess just, when you start something from nothing and you can have a, amount of success, no matter how limited or as much as it is, I think you carry that with you. And for me, I remember what it was like to have no money, no clients, and just trying to prove yourself, so it just, that's why I stay sharp, remember in those days, stay hungry, like anybody else I'm talking to when you're trying to be successful. It's cliche, but it's also true. So.
And I guess kind of the last question to wrap things up would be for you. And I think I asked Teaspoon about it or somebody else did in her introductory press conference. But what about your role in terms of with skill development and things that you garnered through that role transfers best to your role as the GM with this specific team in Chicago Sky?
I think that me having a hand building the skill development, form for the new team, without me on the court now, keeping a hand on things and forming the identity, that we're going to use, as we hire skill trainers and, coaches that we hire and see where their strengths are on the court as far as player development goes. But, just overall, I just think that the detail that I've had to put into building the business, and you can't just be good as a point guard coach. You can't just be good as a wing coach. You can't, having a Frank Kaminsky or an Ennis Cantor or a Wilson Chandler. I mean, I had to get better at training post players, because you want to be prepared. You want to have answers all the time. And I think that is in the vein of the question, is that, there's so many things you have to be educated on in this field as a general manager. Just to be aware of small things on a day-to-day basis, that those details that I use to build, the previous business are still super important to me with this one, because, there's questions every day that need answers. And sometimes I got them. Sometimes I got to hit the CBA. Sometimes I got to call the league. Sometimes I got to ask somebody in our front office. Sometimes I got to ask Teaspoon, but like I said, working collaboratively with these people, it has been amazing. I mean, it's been absolutely amazing. And if I was going to switch occupations, it was going to be where I could surround myself with like-minded people. And I'm in it, I'm surrounded by amazing people.
This is the CHGO Sky Show, again with Stephen and Chris. Jeff, we appreciate your time. I did remember there was something that stuck in my mind from Teresa Weatherspoon's introductory press conference. She specifically said, and I quote, "We're taking over the city." That was the one thing that stuck in my mind, and Nadia Rollinson agreed. So I want to ask, if you are putting the other teams on notice that play in the summertime, the White Sox, the Bulls, the Red Stars, the Fire, can you tell us right now, are the Chicago Sky taking over the city?
We want to have a hand in taking over the city. Yes, we got some great sports teams, but we're coming for everybody else in this league.
All right.
That you can count on. I mean, you'll feel us day one. Promise you.
I love it. I legitimately do love it, because I want to see. I think every one of us on this show and every one of us who follows the team want to see them continue to grow. Jeff Pagliocca, I appreciate you. Thank you for taking the time out.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for coming on the show again. We're going to try and find a way for you and Stephen to talk more X's and O's sometime soon.
Yeah, I love it, you guys. Thank you so much for having me. This was amazing. I'm just so proud of what we're building and the people that I'm working with. And we have an amazing core here already that we're excited to add to. I know we'll have much more to talk about, post free agency. But I appreciate you guys. It means the world, having conversations like this about this team.
We appreciate you.
Most definitely. Follow the show at CHGO_Sky. Follow CHGO_Sports. Again, part of the All City Sports Network. For our amazing producer, Joey Spathis, for everybody who tuned in with us, we see you out there. Miss Melissa, you got in just under the wire. This has been the CHGO Sky Show. Stephen Garner, follow him at SayTrueS.3. He's got the coming down the pipeline, everything Phoenix Suns, Chicago Bulls, and the Sky News is coming out soon as free agency hits the whatever I was going to say. You know what it means. This is the CHGO Sky Show. Until next time, people, be good, do great things, and keep your head above the clouds. We'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.
We all silly like the mayor.